Hello guys. Do you wonder why the room is so full? Well, we do and we don't. We do because we understand you'd rather have an app payroll than talking about the app payroll right now, but we don't because we have a lot of interesting stuff and we really want to showcase the great new functionalities of payroll. So stick with us, we have a lot of great things to see.
That's right. Thank you for joining us for this talk, What's New in Payroll. If you are here, that's probably because you are either a payroll addict or maybe a payroll skeptical. Anyway, be ready to come out of this talk with a lot of new learnings regarding what is now feasible in payroll in Odoo 18.
I am Pierre Cunen, I'm an HR expert. I'm here, I'm with my co-speaker Antoine. We have both been working on the payroll service for the past year, and we are happy to bring shine to this new amazing app.
What we ask ourselves as a question in Odoo for more than a year now is how can we make payroll usable for everyone, for any company in the world? As you may know, payroll is a very complex task for a lot of countries, well, in other countries, in lots of industries, especially in Belgium. Like if we take the example, we have more than 200 joint committees that are supposed, to calculate the payslip for each different sectors and industry in the country. That's a lot. I mean, if we need to configure all of them in a database, it's almost not feasible. The idea is, okay, so what can we put in place? How can we improve the tool itself to make sure it's going to be adaptable for any kind of use cases we can face? For that, we have worked on two different axes. The first axis is the improvement of the product itself, based on all the feedback that we gather from the market, from the partners, from the end users. It means both adding new features on the product to match the, let's say, the business needs, but as well also improve the interface, make sure that the user experience is very smooth from the start to the end. The second axis is to develop localization, to make sure that we can very easily install an out-of-the-box solution in a database that would adapt the solution to the needs of the market, of the industry. Well, now it's time for the wow effect, or should I say the app payroll effect. And for that, we are going in an Odoo 18 database for us to show you a bit of the new features that we can have in Odoo 18.
So the first great new features I want to talk about is the benefits revamp. Benefits are very, very, very important. First, because your employee really can choose their benefits depending on their situation. It's really important nowadays in our companies to adapt to the employees, to see what they want. Some will prefer more time off, some will prefer to have a higher salary, some will need a phone subscription, some won't. So it's very important to be able to rightly and in an easy way manage all those benefits. So let's see how benefits has been revamped in our database. Let me jump into the Odoo database in version 18, and I'm gonna go to the payroll application and see in my configuration the new benefit page. So I can look at any of them, for example, the extra time off, and here you can see this page has completely changed. So now it's way more clear how to compute and create those new benefits. You can see at the top all the fields linked to the computation of the benefit, and then on the tab, really all the fields linked to the display of the benefit on the salary configurator. So now this page is way more clear, so I can see for this extra time off that I'm going to have a slider going from 0 to 15. So I configured it correctly, and now let me showcase on the salary configurator what it will look like. So I can go on one of my employees. Let's take Clément, for example, and from his contract directly, I can generate a new offer because he just had his appraisal, he works very well, and we want to give him an increase. So I'm going to create a new offer and increase his employer budget. Let's say to 60,000. Just like that, I can send it by email. So from his home, he will be able to look at his salary and choose the different benefits he wants on his own package. So what does it look like? Let's open this page, and you can see the different benefits here. So benefits already exist before but now it's easier than ever to modify them and to really adapt them to your employees and to all the possibilities you can make to adapt your package. And here, as I was saying, you can see the extra time off, which is a slider going from 0 to 15. So this is very powerful, and this is one of the big aspects that Odoo uses to help us and keep their employee at Odoo.
Indeed, I think that's really important that both the end users but also like the people who configure Odoo have a very nice interface to play with. So both in the back end and then in the front end, on the salary configurator. And that's really also the focus that we put in place in the new version 18. All right, I will now mention the second improvement that has been done, which is about the warning customization. So you may know that in Odoo 17, we released a new feature to have some warnings available in the payroll app. Those warnings have the purpose for the HR team to have some follow-up of variables, payroll parameters in the company to make sure that they become proactive before the end of the month when they need to generate a payslip. Generating a payslip is a very regular task, so it's very important to reduce the stress that you may have at the end of the period, because of course that's something that you want to avoid as much as possible. Well, I mean, the warnings are not new, they were already there in the Odoo 17 database, but now we are able to understand how they are built, what is behind it, and also to create new ones. And that's what you're going to do now. So I will jump in the database as well. And here, if I open my payroll application, I can see here, in the first square of my page, all of the warnings that are here by default, that have been installed when I just installed my payroll application. Very nice. Well, let's do a use case. Let's imagine that I want to have a track of all the contracts that are either in the expired or cancelled stage. For that, I will need to do a bit of Python code. Okay, we lost the screen. All right, it's back.
What if I don't know how to code?
Yes, that's something that is of course a problem. Like not, again, like all of the, let's say, HR officers are some Python developers. So the idea is for them to still have a nice approach, an easy approach, to still be able to customize those warnings. For that, what I will do first is to just jump to the contracts, which is the target of what I want to achieve. I want to see only the expired and cancelled contracts. All right, to do that in Odoo, that's something that you may know, you can use filters. But what I will do is that I will use filters by activating first the developer mode. So for that, I activate my debug mode, and here I can create my filter. When I do that, I can now set all of my, let's say, requirements, which is first to be in the right company. So to have all the contracts of my company here, PSFP company. Then to have all of the contracts that have an employee that is set. Why is it? Because you want to avoid having like all the contract template that you could find in a database, which are just contracts without an employee. Finally, we need to meet all of those conditions. And then we have two conditions that are possible regarding the status, which is first here to have the status in expired or the status in cancelled.
So now I'm seeing only Karim as a contract that is expired, so the warning should display Karim for me, right?
Indeed, that's correct. So here what I can simply do is to select the code editor display that is at the bottom. I don't need to develop anything myself, it's already done by Odoo, and go out of it, and go and jump now in my payroll application to check what I have here in my warnings. All right, I'm in my warning. What I will do, because I'm a bit lazy, I just want to copy something that is already existing. And so for that, I will take the first one of the list, and here make a duplicate of that warning. And here we'll say employees with expired or cancelled contracts. All right, well, here you may say, Antoine, there is a lot of code here. I'm not a developer. Okay, it's probably correct, but actually not all of it is important. Actually, if I remove what is not, you will see that we just end with a very, let's say, nice overview and quite simple about what is really important, which is actually that part. Here, what I can do is simply paste the domain that I just created in my filter. And then, I don't want to target my employee, I want to target my contract. So here, I'm going to remove employee and target the contract of my database. Afterwards, the output of the warning is always the same. So here I can simply adapt it to my case to mention the contract. And just for me to make sure that I can easily see it, I will just design the warning color in blue, that it is very, let's say, visual also in my dashboard. Once it is done, okay, let's check, perfect. And I see that I have directly a new warning displayed on my dashboard telling me, okay, those are the employees with an expired or cancelled contract. Pretty simple, no?
Pretty easy, yes.
Yes, okay, perfect.
Do you have other warnings you could show us?
Yes, indeed. I mean, I cheated a bit. I did a few of them before before the talk. So let's see them in the archived menu, and let's try to unarchive the ones that I did not create yet. And here, if I unarchive them and go to my dashboard, I have now 3 of them that have been added. First is to see, for example, if some employees have a contract salary that is above a certain limit.
Yeah, that's important because yesterday I already had the case of a new employee starting, I don't know if you recall, and increasing his salary. So we just created this new warning that's very useful for those kind of human errors.
Indeed, and then you have a red one here with employees with a no branded car. I mean, that's terrible.
No. That's impossible. Do you want to give FP a heart attack?
No, I think no one wants that. And finally, we can have also a view at all the employees that do not have a bank account on their employee profile.
Yeah, this one for me is not as important as the others.
Okay, let's see if there's some purpose of it at the end of the talk. Okay, it's your turn, Apai.
So very powerful, the warning, especially if you think about it, you can really customize it as you want. The next big point is the interface improvement. We've got a lot of times the feedback that payroll is complicated, not that user-friendly, so we try to improve that a lot. We have added a lot of smart buttons that helps you navigate through the different apps. We have added some tabs, for example, on the employee to clarify where are the important fields related to payroll, and 2 other big improvements. So the year-to-date computation, it's actually very important in many companies to be able to know the year-to-date computation. So for example, in Australia or USA, it's very important to see a resume of the previous payslip. I'm going to showcase how it's look like in the database. And also a new payslip layout. Sometimes you might need a lighter version of your payslip, so another template. You might need some specific template based on some local legislation, so you are able to configure those different layouts. Let me showcase in the database. The first thing I wanted to show you was, for example, on the employee, I have now a payroll tab, so I can really put all the fields related to payroll over there. If I'm creating a new localization, I can put all the fields related to the localization over there. If I go on my contract, for example, I will see, of course, the contract, the pay slips, all the salary attachments directly, and if I have an offer. So really easy link to make all the process easier. Another one that I really like is before, if I was on my batches. So the batches is when I have several pay slips and I want to process those pay slips into the accounting. Before I could create a draft entry, but that draft entry I had to find it from accounting. So I go in accounting, I find again my salary journal, and there I can find the draft entry. Now, as soon as I create it, I have a smart button directing, giving me access to the draft entry that I can correct or not, and then later on post. So those are some of the small improvements to ease the experience. And the bigger one are, for example, in the work in my payslips. Let me create a new batch of payslips. Remove the conflict. Let's do it for next month. I'm gonna generate my payslips. And here, I will see, oh no, I haven't configured it. So I need first to do it on my structure. So let me go to my structure. And here you will see new interesting fields. So for example, for the monthly pay, you will see new fields. So the one I was talking about is the year-to-date computation. So with that, I will see now in my payslip a new column, and same-wise in my PDF.
And then be a question for that.
Yeah.
Like it's a year-to-date computation, but does it mean it is always going to start computing that on the 1st of January, or can it be another date?
It could be another date. We give that flexibility. So let me showcase the year-to-date, and then where you can change this date of year-to-date computation. I'm gonna generate now for...
Actually, I think you can reuse the one from November.
Yeah, but if I go to December, I can have even more. So
yes.
Yeah, I mean, 3 months in advance. So I'm gonna use the one I already created. So for November, it's confirmed. Let me check now the pay slips from Clément again. And now I do have my year-to-date computation. So here, if I do
yes, I think
compute sheet,
exactly.
You will see directly that my year-to-date is a sum of the previous payslip. So I really get to what's happened with the previous payslip on that column. And if I print it, I will be able to see in my PDF this year-to-date computation as well. So this is the classic PDF, the classic template we use internally with all the information of the employee, the days he worked. But what if I want a simpler version of that? Well, I can also, on my structure, change the template of the PDF. I'm gonna go again here, and now I have this template option, and I can change, for example, the payslip to be lighter, and to have just the information I need. I could have a lot of possibilities, for example, all those templates we have here. I will save and go on my batch, and now if I reprint the payslip of Clément, I will see now that it's where there is way less information, and it's another template for this payslip. So this is great because it's just lighter, but it's also important for some countries where I'm going to need a specific template. I have this option available right now. All right, let me put you back to full screen, and let me show you the next improvement.
Perfect, thank you, Pierre. Well, the next one is regarding the new payslip generation wizard. What you saw is Pierre going to the work entries and doing what we call the regular pay management, just to generate the regular payslip that you get every month as an employee. In that case, now we want to tackle some more specific use cases, as the one of the generation of the 13th month payslip in Belgium, for example, or it could be that one of your employees decides to leave the company and need to display or to generate the payslip for the termination fees of that employee. In that situation, previously, the interface was not very convenient to be able to properly select the right employees, among your teams. And so this is why we wanted also to highlight this new change that's applied now in Odoo 18. So let me show you that quickly now in the database. So if I jump to my Payroll application, I can now go to my batches of payslip, and here I will generate my 13th month payslip, as I said. When I do so, I have now this button, Generate Payslips, and if I click on it, I get this new wizard that has been completely redesigned by the R&D. So here, the idea is that you can very more precisely select the right employees among your list of all your employees. It could be based on the department. So for example, here, if I choose administration, I have only 2 employees remaining at the bottom. Or it could be, for example, based on the job position. For example, if I want to look only the developers of my company. So you see, straight away, I get the right data displayed at the bottom. Then I have the choice to select the salary structure type. Here in that case, I'm in my CP200. And once it is done, I can choose just at the bottom the right salary structure. What do we mean by that? It means that for one structure type in your Payroll application, you can have many different computations of payslip. In that situation, here, I will select the 13th month computation, because of course it is different from the one that we have on a regular basis. Well, everything is fine. I can now generate my payslip, and here get the batch of my payslip regarding that specific use case. Also, this new wizard is very interesting when you have a large company, a large workforce, and you want to target maybe specific part of your company for specific computation. It could be that in some companies, the computation of the salary depends on the department or the position. It is very now more easy to do that thanks to that tool. Also, keep in mind that when you want to, let's say, launch payroll in your company with Odoo, it's always better to do a double run and to do it on Odoo and in another software. Having this tool available is an easy way to target some specific use case just for you to check, okay, do I get the same result then in Odoo that I have also in my previous software? Well, I think that's it.
Very interesting feature, but we have more. Now we have also a new feature for the batch payment report. What you have to do every month once you have all your payslip, well, pay your employee. We already had a payment report where we had the SEPA payment, for example, but this is only for Europe. And now we wanted to improve that. So we wanted to have this tool available for anyone. So we made it possible for it to be usable just with a CSV, for example. So the tool is there, and if a new localization comes with a new payment method, we can easily adapt the tool to be compatible with this new payment method. So let me showcase it. I'm gonna go on my previous batch. Let's go on the batch here, the one I used here, and I'm gonna create my draft entry. You can see automatically it's there, as I was saying before, and now I will be able to create my payment report. I could do NASHA, for example, in the USA is available already. I have SEPA for Europe, and now I have a very simple one, CSV, so with just the simple information. It's probably not one that is compatible with your bank, but at least you see the basic one, and that now any format is possible to add easily here. So let me select the CSV, generate.
Ah, it's so bad that we did not have a warning just before to tell us that you were missing a bank account.
Fair point, 1 point for you, Antoine. Okay, let me add quickly the bank account on the employee and not tell you that you're wrong anymore. But what is interesting is that could have been avoided if I was listening to Antoine and to the warnings, because it's very important to correct everything as soon as I can, because when I'm at the end of the month and I have to generate all my payslip, that's the worst time to have to correct the bank account of my employees. So the warnings are very important to improve and to reduce the number of errors and ease the end of the month payslip generation. All right, let's validate that and now process my batch. Now I can create my payment report. All right, and I here have the CSV. So if I open it, you can see it's very simple, very small. If I manage to leave the full screen. And here is the very simple CSV. So here it's just information about the different bank accounts, the different employees, and of course the amount I have to pay for them. So even if I'm not connected to a bank and I cannot use NASHA or SEPA, at least I have a very clear report I can use to do all my payments.
So indeed, as you said, this format is quite basic. Can you really see the difference between that format and the one that we get when we generate a SEPA payment?
For anyone in Europe, we have the SEPA. So let me show you what it looks like. I can create a SEPA payment. And here you see it's not a CSV anymore, but an XML. So an XML compatible with the bank. And if I open it, you can see this is the XML format that I can send to my bank. It's recognizable easily, and they will process all my payments. So for bigger company, it's like very important to have this SEPA option. All right, so that's it about the payslip, the payment report. Maybe I think we have time for one big new feature.
Indeed. You know, when it comes to payroll, what you may expect at some point is the possibility to adapt the salary structure that you are using. I mean, adding new rules, new salary rules, maybe to complete what is already existing in Odoo, or if you want also to create your own localization. If you try to do it in Odoo 17, you had at some point to do some Python code, or to use Studio or development to add new fields on the contract form, for example. Now I want to take a challenge. Let's try to do it now in Odoo 18 without coding anything and without adding any fields also with Studio. We'll take a use case. The use case is that our employees can get a first aid certification. If they do so, they can earn 100 euros more on their gross salary. Okay, it seems easy. Let's try to do it now in my database. To do that, I will use a feature that is called the salary attachment. The salary attachment, if you are used to it as well in Odoo 17, was quite redundant with what we called also the over inputs type, at least. Now, both of them have been mixed. So that now if you go into the configuration of payroll, you will only retrieve the over input types in the list. Here what I will do, is I will create my first aid bonus and give it as well a code here to recognize it. Now what you can see is that a new checkbox has appeared on that view, telling me, okay, I want it to be available on my salary attachments. Very good, let's select it, and wow, I have 2 more fields to select. One of them is actually to set, I don't want any end date by default. What does it mean? It means that, for example, like my first aid certification is not supposed to expire, okay? So I want this bonus to be set on the long term, at least for the period of the contract of my employee. So here I can select no end date by default to make sure that, I ease the work also afterwards when I create the corresponding salary attachment. Very good. Well, now I can jump to my contract. And luckily, Richard is going to save our lives in the company because he passed the first aid certification. So now I can decide indeed to create a new salary attachment for him based on the button that Pierre just showed you before. Very good. Well, I can give it a description as well, like this. Select the right type, the one that I just created now. And what I will do is to give like the monthly value that I want to add to his payslip. You see here the no end date has been selected by default. That's the purpose of what I did just before. But if you decide to unselect it, you will see a new field appear, which is the total amount that you expect to deliver to your employee. In that case, I could decide, for example, to set it to 500 euros, which means that Odoo will automatically compute and understand that I want 5 occurrences for that salary attachment, so during the 5 next months, and the estimated end date is automatically computed as well. But as I said, this use case is not the one that we want, so let's go back then to the one that we were at the start. But here I'll say it's an allowance, it's a positive amount. What if I want maybe to make a deduction, that would be also redundant, regular at least. So here, if I try to put a negative sign, that's something that you can experience also in Odoo 17, you will get an error telling you, be careful because your amount cannot be negative here. So in that case, what you need to do is to set the negative value option here at the bottom to make sure that it will be considered as negative afterwards during the payslip generation. But once again, here, this is not the use case that we are working on. All right, now my contract is created, I have the right salary attachment, but I still miss something. I need to do the link between my contract, my salary attachment, and the salary structure. For that, it's pretty easy. I can simply go to my rules and check the one from my monthly pay. In that list, I know it very well. There is a rule that is quite similar to what I want to achieve, and this rule is the reimbursement. That is mostly at the bottom. Yeah, this one. What I can do is simply duplicate that rule. Once again, I'm lazy, I want to be quick. When I do so, I have a small information telling me, okay, I am on the copy version of the rule. Previously, in Odoo 17, it was not the case. So you could be asking yourself the question, did I properly duplicate it or not? It may be not so clear it is the case. All right, so let's rename it then. You can give it the code. The code should be the same as the one from the over input type. Okay, so be careful when you design it. And then you can give it a sequence. I told you, I don't want to do any Python code. Okay, so this is what you have on the screen is the old version from the Odoo 17. Here, what I can simply do is change the condition based on field. And here, select among all the possibilities, the over input. And that's where I can select my first aid bonus here and do the same, of course, for the amount. And same, select it. Okay, it seems nice. The whole configuration is done. As you see, it was quite easy. And I can now generate my payslip for the month of October and check if my salary attachment has been added to the rule to the salary of Richard or not. I go to Richard contract. First, I can go down, and indeed I see that the first aid bonus appears on the payslip. But then I can also check in the computation itself. And if I go at the bottom, indeed, I can see now that my first aid bonus has been indeed added to my lines. So it seems to work. That's really nice.
And that's actually based on all the feedbacks we received before. We really noticed after working on many payroll projects and localization that the attachment and the salary inputs are very powerful, and you can really do a lot of things with it. All the deduction and allowance very easily. And so now with this, it's easier than ever to adapt your different payslips. All right, I think we can go back to our slide. And we've seen a lot of great features, a lot of features improving the product itself. But what is the impact on the implementation of payroll? Because you might know we have localization, we have many scenarios. Well, we have actually identified 3 possible scenarios, and depending on those, we will have great new features. Some will be glad to have all the new features we showed, but we have also great news for all the 3 scenarios. So let us see the first one with you, Antoine.
Indeed. The first one is the idle case. I mean, it's the one where you have a developed localization just available for you. Okay, it's quite rare for now because we don't have a lot of localization available and ready to be deployed, but still, it's one of the scenarios. In that situation, you want to just add a new module to your database that's going to adapt your payroll setup according to the needs and to the requirements of your market or industry, or at least also the payroll legislations. That's a bit similar to what you have, in the accounting app. Like you can choose your fiscal localization, and accordingly, it's going to adapt your chart of account, taxes, and so on. That's exactly the same idea. We were able to do it also because now we have a lot of offices around the world, and each of those offices are willing to create their own localization on payroll to make sure that they could, at some point, generate their own payslips themselves. That's why now we can already announce a few of those developed localization for Belgium, Switzerland, I think this one is Luxembourg, Kenya, Australia, India, USA, Hong Kong, UAE, and yes, I studied my flags just before the talk.
So all of those are, well, we still be careful because we say it's developed. For most of it, it is developed, but you still have to be careful and test it yourself. Payroll is very specific, very advanced, so always test it yourself. For example, when we say Belgium, we mean the joint committee CP200. We have not covered all the joint committees. And for all of those, we are sometimes getting certified, so it's in the process. For example, Switzerland, it should be done for the 30th of November. So really, everything is starting right now. And since Antoine was a bit jealous, he also made me study my flags. And so here are all the localization that we are also working on, but that we hope will be developed as soon as possible. And those are the localization for France, Spain, Egypt, Slovakia, not Luxembourg, Netherlands,
yes,
Germany, United Kingdoms, and many, many more. All right.
If you are a bit interested, regarding, okay, you told me about the localization, but I don't know what it looks like in practice. Pay attention that we gave a talk yesterday, which was called All About Payroll Situation in Odoo, in which we just highlight from the start to the end of a payroll workflow the Belgian use case on the Belgian localization to show you how smooth it is once you have the proper setting to use payroll for your company.
Yeah, you can really see in the demo how far a configuration can go. And on top of that, you see all the payroll service that we've developed. So we've not just improved the product, but we've developed many things for the business development part of payroll. That means new smart classes, new Odoo academies, new qualification questions for the sales. So a lot of things are going on for improving payroll. So feel free to rewatch our video available on YouTube. All right, the second scenario we wanted to talk about is when you don't have a localization, because either it's very simple to compute your payroll. For example, in Africa, it's actually very easy. It's only a few rules to start from your basic salary to your taxable salary to get to your net salary. So for those, we don't need a new localization, but you can actually, thanks to all the new improvement, create it yourself and create all your new salary rule yourself. And that's what all the Kenyan office has been working on. In many, many projects in Africa, they always want to implement payroll. And they've been working with us, with all the consultants. They follow the smart class to be able to create those salary rules and generate pay slips for their client directly. Another use case is for very niche markets. For example, this is a market for the seller. The seller, we are not going to develop a localization. This is too niche for us. We have way too many localizations to work on before. But for them, it's also a pretty simple computation. It's actually a project that was implemented by Antoine, where based on the planning, you can create the payslip of your seller. So just like that, knowing the different computation, Antoine was able to create the different salary rules, add a few fields with Studio to be able to generate the payslip of those both sellers. So this is the second use case. And for this one again, or if you're developing your own localization, it's really useful, all those new features we've showed you. Finally, the last use case possible.
Indeed, it's time to then mention all of the rest. I mean, all the companies where we cannot do a customization straight away, for that specific situation, or where we don't have an available localization. For that, I mean, it's still possible to use Payroll to benefit from all the things that we saw and that we know also regarding Odoo. The idea is that you start, recording all of the data in Odoo, but at some point, before generating the payslip, decide to export the data and send them to the third party or the expert, the external expert that is going to generate the payslip for you. That's what we have actually in Belgium. We have, as I said, a lot of joint committees that are designing all the salary should be computed per sectors, per industry. In that case, I mean, it's not feasible to develop all of those localizations in Odoo. So we have put in place now a new feature, which is, okay, I want then the possibility to export my work countries in a specific format that would be compatible with one of the social secretary that takes care of computing those payslips. Maybe, Pierre, you can show us what it looks like in the database.
Let me jump back in our database. And you saw where it was in the payroll application below reporting. I do have those different options. So if I go into the export to Group S, I can really see that we've created a tool to be able to export the data that is needed to generate the payslips. So this tool can be usable for other entities than Group S. If you have a big entity managing all your payroll in France and we don't have a localization yet, well, you could use this tool to export the data and provide it to them in a specific format that would suit them. Here I could create the format, populate with all my employees, and then continue to generate the file I can export. We're not going to do all this flow right now because we have a talk given by Quentin tomorrow showcasing all this flow tomorrow with Group S. So they're going to share the scene tomorrow. So if you're really interested in this specific use case, you should come tomorrow to this great talk.
But actually, this use case is not specific. Like, as you may mention, here, like we design not only like that, let's say that option for Group S or for another social secretary, we design the tool that could be used also in a different situation.
Yeah, that's right. So, to sum up, payroll is now more mature than ever, and we are committed in making it easier, better, and more accessible to everyone.
Also, keep in mind that payroll is part of the Odoo scope, which means that you can just install it in any database of your existing clients without having any additional cost regarding the use of that app.
This is a unique opportunity. You can be among the first ones to adopt all those new features and gain a competitive edge. And like two famous speakers have once said, payroll is now a major focus of Odoo, so join the payroll train while you can. Thank you for listening to us. So before maybe going for the apparel that we all deserve, we're gonna show you the pad and you have some questions, we will be happy to answer. If Quentin is willing to ask.
Well, first of all, guys, thank you for this amazing talk. I think we learned a lot about payroll again, thanks to you today, yesterday. I think now every day we'll hear about you guys.
You bet.
we learned a lot today. We've got not that many questions. Well, they are still arriving because I don't know, maybe people didn't have the link to your Q&A pad yet. So let's start with the first ones that we see in the list. It is a specific one regarding Luxembourg, and there the question is there any plan to adapt the payroll for specific collective agreements? So how does it work basically for Luxembourg? What's the situation over there?
Well, for Luxembourg, I know we are still working on it to make it available for our offices. And then as soon as we have more feedbacks, we will always try to improve the current localization to make it available for as many people as possible. So to be sure which collective are available, you should come with us, talk to the product owner or to the developer focusing on that. But be assured that we always try to make the localization available for as many people as we can in the country.
Okay, thanks. You've showed also something about year-to-date option. You've showed that it's possible to print it, and people are asking, how does this work? Is it based on the view, the printing, or is it based on a setting? How do I choose to show it or not?
Okay. Well, I think first it's right that we forget, actually it's not part of the question, but we forget to show that we can choose a starting date here in the settings, I think.
You asked me the question, but I forgot
Yes.
to show it.
But regarding the display, indeed, I think you cannot choose like to have it in the back end, but not have it on the front end, on the PDF. So
Okay,
both,
so once you set it, it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
both are linked. So it means that if you have it here, you also have it on the payslip.
Okay, thank you. Does it mean that basically, because you've showed also something very interesting about improvements in salary attachments, change of other input types, but does it mean that we could basically use this as a workaround to not create extra fields in the database, or?
That's true. That's exactly one of the aim of that. Before, we often had to add new fields with Studio on the contract, for example, and we had a huge list of different fields that then we called in the salary rules to have new salary rules. With those other input type, you really have the possibility to add or remove deduction or allowance on your different pay slips without having to add all those new fields. So really more flexibility and no need for Studio to add all those fields.
Also, something that is important is regarding the maintenance of what you are doing in terms of customization.
Sure.
If you just pay attention to what was done, on the rules that I mentioned before, it was the reimbursement one. What we could show, what you could see actually, or guess, is that here the Python code could evolve in the time, depending on how the framework of Odoo is going to evolve. So by creating some custom rules, maybe at some point you will get some issue displayed on the screen. While now, by selecting the other input option, you have way more chance to be more consistent and also robust when you will come to upgrade the database for your clients.
So actually it's almost an invitation to use the feature more than ever instead of creating fields, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then there is that question, it's a bit specific, so I'm not sure whether, what's the use case, maybe here we've got now a bit more information, but the question is about, is it possible on one payslip to split the amounts that you pay for two separate bank accounts? For instance, you would have one part of the salary that would be paid on one bank account, the normal one, and the other part on an investment bank account, for instance.
That's
It's
pretty
a good one,
question. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Let me think about it. Well, right now we showed how we have some specific templates. Those templates on the structure display different information on the payslip. If we generate, well, for now they are hard-coded, but if you generate a new template with other fields from the employee, you could showcase different information. And I think you would have to add a specific salary rule as well to split the amount you are paying to the employee to different partners or providers. So you would send a part of the net to the employee itself, to his bank account, and then create a new salary rule for the rest to the pension, for example. And there you would have in your accounting entry another debit or credit account to send the money to that account rather than to the bank account of the employee.
Indeed, I think also well, it's still the same idea, but indeed, if you decide to create some intermediate salary rule, or maybe after the net salary, just to indeed define this division between the amount, what you could still do also is create your own report. I mean, it depends also in which country you are, but you could then put a focus on the salary rule, and in a pivot view, for example, group it per kind of rule and have the amount per employee that should give per month. It's a workaround, but it's something that you could definitely do also if you.
Also, I think for me, from my part, it was the first time I heard about that use case. I don't know for you guys, but we can definitely think about other kind of solution. Because I'm not sure in this case if we can also automate until the XML generation part and stuff. So,
and in this case, is it really a need from the employee or from the company? If it's from the employee, well, he can switch the money himself. Maybe it's a workaround. It depends on the specific question.
Yeah, but definitely we can find a solution for that. Then there is this question about, can we connect payroll with accounting, or how is it connected? Maybe it's a better question because we know that it's possible, but how does this work?
Yeah. So by default, the payroll is connected to accounting because from the batch you generate a draft entry in accounting. But how is this draft entry generated? Well, it's based on the debit and credit account defined on the different salary rules. And this is what Antoine is showing us right now. On the salary rules, you have a third tab where you can define the debit and credit account, and changing those will modify the different invoice lines that are in your draft entry.
And I think during the talk you've showed us the link to the draft entry, and this is...
Indeed, we saw the result. Also, you have also one more option, which is the choice of the salary journal that is defined here on the salary structure level. So that's where you can decide in which journal the entry should be created.
Okay, thanks. I see something about warnings in the payroll dashboard, and this is a feedback actually. Yeah, okay, it's just about having the possibility. What do you think, guys, of having the possibility to see this copy thing that you've shown for rules also in the warnings? Because now if you duplicate it, you are not sure whether it's the copy or it's the original one.
Oh, yeah, I see. When you duplicate the warning, yes, of course, it's a good feedback. I think we can put into place. I think warnings customization is a new thing, so that's why we don't have that option yet. But we'll write it down and send this feedback. That's a pretty easy feedback to put into place to the product owner, and I'm sure it will be done in a few weeks.
Because I see the next line is also actually another feedback. It's what do you guys think of adding the possibility in the new wizards you've shown to add also the possibility to filter based on tags for the employees instead of just... So this is also typically kind of a feedback. Those are interesting feedback. We will definitely also check them because we got the pads. And so even after the OXP, we will keep the pads and try to work on all the feedbacks you've given. So thank you for that. We've got also another one, very interesting. When you create a batch entry, does it generate one journal entry for all the payslips, or it creates a journal entry for each payslips?
Well, the answer is one journal entry for the whole batch of payslip. So it means, of course, then that you can select, which are the payslips of your batch. If you want, to divide them and have multiple batches for the same month, it's possible. But by default, once you confirm the whole batch, you get a journal entry for that batch. And so in the lines that you get here in the journal entry, you get the sum, of course, of all the payslips that you have in the corresponding batch in your database.
The only new option we have here in the settings is the batch account move lines. So this merge all the accounting entries for the same period into a single account move line. So that's why everything is merged, and you can also remove that option if you don't want them to be merged.
Okay, very clear. Thank you. What about, because you've spoken a bit about localizations, and I think we've people here from the UK and the Netherlands. Have you heard about a possible deadline when we could have a localization ready, or?
So those are really in the work in progress part. And why are they in work in progress? It's usually because it's kind of an opportunity to develop a new localization. What we mean is that we had a lot of requests for partners for Swiss, and they had a very clear documentation, so we developed it. Now we have a lot of people interested in Mexico, and we have a big push, and so we have a good specification of how you should compute the localization, so we are doing it as well. And same goes for UK and Netherlands. If we have great feedback, great specification on how to develop it with right documentation, then we take all of this information and we create the localization. But we don't have that right now for the UK nor the Netherlands, so that's why we've started it, but we are waiting to have more documentation or just more time or great opportunities like those to develop those two specific localizations.
We've got the same question for other countries like Argentina, Mexican payroll. Also,
Mexican is really now, we had these great specs. So for Mexico, we are really working on it, and so you can really hope to have it for the next version.
Wow, that's wonderful. What about Malta? Because people are suggesting actually to have a holiday in the sun, whilst you could also work at the same time on developing the localization.
That's a good one. Yeah, we could. I think we're gonna push to develop the Spain localization soon, so we can then go to that office and make sure we develop only localization in the south.
Okay. Another one regarding localizations. They are asking to share the screen, but I think it is shared. But the question is about how can I find out whether there is actually a localization for my country?
Yeah, but you can actually go to the app here, and here you will be able to see if there is a localization especially for you. So if I just type payroll here, we already have a list of all the localization. Be careful that having a module here doesn't mean the localization is necessarily mature or ready to generate all your pay slips. So that means you can install it. Once you install it, try it out, try to generate pay slip, see if you get the right amount of what you are supposed to get, and then you will be able to know if the localization is mature or not. What you can also do is always send us a mail as well on our email address to ask us for a specific one.
Okay, thanks. Then we've got another question regarding the templates, because you've showed us that now you've got different possibilities for printouts of the payslip templates. Are they customizable?
Well, they are as customizable as any, I would say, a PDF that you have in Odoo. For that, we cannot show it here, well, because we could install Studio, but it may take a bit of time. So actually, let's try. But once you have Studio, I mean, you can open, let's say, the report editor, and here you could decide to modify, let's say, the PDF itself. So it's part of the customization. I would always recommend at that moment, if there are really some specific needs, to just go in the XML code then of the report and do the change at that place.
I know some of the reports are hard-coded, so we would have to still verify that. So please join us for that, to verify that afterwards.
Yeah. There is, let me check, and also another question. Maybe you're going to need to specify a bit, but the question is it possible to import payroll generated by an external service provider into Odoo? But then my question is more, even if it is possible, what's the purpose of doing it? So maybe
really,
you could specify if you're here or help us to answer that question.
And the thing is, if you have the code, it's for another software than Odoo, and it won't be compatible anyway, because we have specific way of developing a localization in Odoo with specific models, there is specific tests that are done on the code to validate it won't break anything else in Odoo. So you wouldn't be able to just take it and push it here, but it could still be a good base to see how to develop it in Odoo.
Maybe if the question is linked to the last, I think it was the last use case you've shown, if it's pre-post payroll, maybe we can still, because we showed, I think there is something for pre-payroll. What about post-payroll? maybe this is also something that we can solve in any way thanks to the document app or something like that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, indeed. What you call usually post payroll is the idea to then gather in Odoo the PDF that would generate externally. I mean, just to benefit from that platform for employees so to easily get it in their portal. But also, I mean, what is the output as well of the payroll workflow is the accounting entry. And so at the moment, what you would expect probably in the post payroll is this entry to be imported from the computation that is done externally. That's the 2 points that I see regarding the post payroll process.
Okay, we've got
Maybe the last one?
You don't want to answer more questions for today?
Well,
I have two two interesting ones.
Almost time for
Two
the payroll.
interesting ones. The first one is about overtime computation.
Yes.
What's the best workaround, or what's your advice, guys, for this? Because I think we can handle in some way some overtime computation, but what would you recommend?
Yeah. So this is already doable in standard. From your work entries, I don't know if you record the work entries, those are really the when you were at the office or not. And that's where you could compute your overtime, maybe based on the attendance application. When do you badge in, badge out? If you see you work overtime, we will have a work entries saying that you worked overtime there. So when I'm generating the payslip, I will have a specific type of, let me showcase here, of work days which will be overtime, and based on that overtime there, I can add some money based on the salary rule. So the salary rule would look at this work time, the amount, times it by how much you pay your employee by the hour, and like so you could pay overtime in your pay slips.
Also, another possibility that is also very easy is that you can simply here create another input, overtime hours, and you encode it manually, let's say for each of your employees at the end of the month. And you take into account that over input, as we show actually with the first add bonus, to compute afterwards the amount of the overtime, let's say, duty that you own to your employees.
Can you also do, like, I never tested, but I think it's possible, like to do the computation in the field directly, or?
Yeah.
If you know the amount of hours and you know how much you pay?
By setting equal?
Yeah.
Let's try. Actually, I don't know. Ah, yes, you can.
Okay,
so, yeah.
nice. So that's also an easy way. And then maybe the last one, because now we have to really stop. And the last question is there apérol at the evening party, guys?
Ah, I hope so.
I don't even think there is.
But there will be the payroll app, because we'll be there. So.
Okay, thank you very much, guys, and congratulations again, and thank you for all the insights you shared with us during Odoo Experience.
And thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.